Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 3, Talks between Lord Shiva and Sati. We will be reading and discussing text number 17. Is that correct? Text 17. 1-7. Vidya Tapa Vitta Vapu Vaya Kulai Satam Gunai Sadbhi Asatama Itarai Smrito Hatayam Britamana Dhurdrisha Stabdha Na Pashyanti Hi Dhama Bhuyasham. So it's 4-3-17. 4-3-17. Vidya tapo vitta vapurvaya kulai. Vidya tapo vitta vapurvaya kulai. Satam gunai sadbhira satamera tarai. Satam gunai sadbhira satametarai. Smrito hatayam vritamana dhurdrisha. Smrito hatayam vritamana dhurdrisha. Stabdha na pashyanti hi dhama bhuyasham. Stabdha na pashyanti hi dhama bhuyasam. Vidya tapo vitta vapurvaya kulai. Satam gunai sadbhira satametarai. Smrito hatayam vritamana dhurdrisha. Stabdha na pashyanti hi dhama bhuyasam. Vidya tapo vitta vapurvaya kulai. Satam gunai sadbhira satametarai. Smrito hatayam vritamana dhurdrisha. Stabdha na pashyanti hi dhama bhuyasam. Vaishnavis. Vidya, education. Tapaha, austerity. Vitta, wealth. Vapu, beauty of the body, etc. Vaya, youth. Kulai, with heritage. Satam, of the pious. Gunai, by such qualities. Sadbhihi, 6. Asattama itarai, having the opposite result to those who are not great souls. Smrito, good sense. Hatayam, being lost. Bhritamana durdrisha, blind due to pride. Stabdaha, being proud. Na, not. Pashyanti, see. He, for. Dhamma, the glories. Bhuyasam, of the great souls. Translation. Although the 6 qualities, education, austerity, wealth, beauty, youth, and heritage, are for the highly elevated, one who is proud of possessing them becomes blind, and thus he loses his good sense and cannot appreciate the glories of great personalities. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. It may be argued that since Daksha was very learned, wealthy, and austere, and had descended from a very exalted heritage, how could he be unnecessarily angry towards another? The answer is that when the good qualities of good education, good parentage, beauty, and sufficient wealth are misplaced in a person who is very puffed up by all these possessions, they produce a very bad result. Milk is a very nice food, but when milk is touched by an envious serpent, it becomes poisonous. Similarly, material assets such as education, wealth, beauty, and good parentage are undoubtedly nice, but when they decorate persons of a malicious nature, then they act adversely. Another example given by Chanakya Pandit is that a serpent that has a jewel on its head is still fearful because it is a serpent. A serpent by nature is envious of other living entities, even though they be faultless. When a serpent bites another creature, it is not necessarily because the other creature is at fault. It is the habit of the serpent to bite innocent creatures. Similarly, although Daksha was qualified by many material assets, because he was proud of his possessions, and because he was envious, all those qualities were polluted. It is sometimes, therefore, detrimental for a person advancing in spiritual consciousness or Krishna consciousness to possess such material assets. Kunti Devi, while offering praise to Krishna, addressed him as Akinchana Gochara, one who is easily approached by those who are bereft of all material acquisitions. Material exhaustion is an advantage for advancement in Krishna consciousness. Although if one is conscious of his eternal relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one can utilize one's material assets, such as great learning and beauty and exalted ancestry, for the service of the Lord. Then such assets become glorious. In other words, unless one is Krishna conscious, all his material possessions are zero. But when this zero is by the side of the Supreme One, it at once increases in value to 10. Unless situated by the side of the Supreme One, zero is always zero. One may add 100 zeros, but the value will still remain zero. Unless one's material assets are used in Krishna consciousness, they may play havoc and degrade the possessor. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Jaina Tasmai Shri Gurave. He comes from a very great ancestry, and naturally, by being such a highly placed personality, a highly respected demigod, he naturally has so much of opulence that surrounds him. To be a progenitor on that level, one has to have immense amount of potency and ability and intelligence. And being a demigod, one would also expect that he is very naturally attractive, very beautiful. So in all these respects, we see from a material perspective, Daksha was living the life, as they say. Really, really living an amazing existence. And because of living so comfortably and so opulently, he became bewildered, covered and intoxicated by all these possessions. And because of that, he considered himself greater, more respect-worthy than his glorious son-in-law, Lord Shiva, the greatest of the demigods, Mahadev. A manifestation, actually, of the Supreme Lord in this material creation, Lord Shiva. So he became too puffed up because of his intense identification with his body, and considered Lord Shiva to be inferior and thus worthy of his grave insults, his grave and very serious offenses. So this is a very important warning to us practitioners. Of course, Daksha had some sense, being so highly elevated, being connected to Lord Brahma, having a daughter like Sati. One would expect that there is some spiritual understanding, there is some spiritual development there. possibly even greater than where we are in our development of spiritual consciousness. But because he had all this opulence around him, he became bewildered. So it's a great warning, a very important lesson to us also. How to engage with material opulence, how to engage with material possessions around us. Queen Kunti, Prabhupada refers to her prayers here in the eighth chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto. She prays Janmaishvarya Shruta Shribhir. She categorizes all material opulences into these four situations. Janma, great ancestry, high birth. High birth. One can very easily become proud of one's position in a particular family. We see it in all cultures. I mean, especially I can speak about the Hindu Indian culture in South Africa. Very, very serious concern. People judge you by your surname. People judge you and measure you by your surname, or who your father or who your grandfather is. They judge you. So Janma, Aishvarya, by how much of money you possess, how wealthy you are. People are judged, people are measured by these things, she's saying. Shruta, by their learning. If you don't have certain levels of education, sometimes people don't want to speak to you, they don't want to see you. They consider you elevated according to one's learning, one's education. Material education, of course. And Shri, by one's beauty. Of course, there are different perspectives on what beauty is, even materially. From the early 1900s to now, the perceptions of beauty and what constitutes beauty, what shapes, what sizes, what colors, it all fluctuates over time. It's interesting, very interesting. So all these things, these four categories compose the entire scope of material opulence. And Kunti Devi is saying, Edamana madhapuman. That these four things can intoxicate one. Can intoxicate one to the extent that even from a devotee point of view, if one gets intoxicated by these four things, or any one of these four things, one will not be able to approach the Supreme Lord with feeling. It won't be able to. For two reasons. One is the pride that's developed in the heart, in the consciousness, by possessing these things, doesn't allow one to approach Krishna, because one thinks of oneself as important already. I don't need to approach. That's one perspective, which actually can very easily be dealt with through karma and the sufferings of the material world. We get snapped into realization sometimes. These four things get taken away, right, by material nature, because they're all temporary. But another reason why we can't approach the Supreme Lord with feeling is because Krishna doesn't want us with that feeling, with that mood to come before Him. Because she says at the end, Akinchana Gochara. Prabhupada says, Akinchana Gochara. Twam Akinchana Gochara. That only persons who are materially impoverished, materially exhausted, only those persons can approach. Because Krishna is actually attracted to those persons. He's attracted. Not that they approach Him, but Krishna also approaches them when they have that sentiment, when they are materially exhausted. Materially exhausted means two things. What are the two ways of looking at this term materially exhausted? Is that they have nothing. All what they've had, their beauty, their health, their possessions, their education, it doesn't matter it's all spent. It's all finished. No money. So that's another form of akinchana, materially exhausted. But the other type of material exhaustion that Krishna is also attracted by is that despite having all these things, someone is situated above the mood of possessiveness for them. They are not bewildered by them because they understand the proper proprietorship of those things. They are peaceful even though having such beauty, such wealth, such strength, such opulence around them. They are not bewildered. So that's because they have exhausted their sense of ownership for those things. So we may find ourselves sometimes in either one of those two categories, isn't it? We may find. And we find devotees in either one of those two categories. We do find them. It's not that if someone is very beautiful or someone's very wealthy, someone comes from a very high background, they cannot be a devotee of Krishna. They cannot approach Krishna with feeling. They can, provided that they are above this feeling of, yes, I am this wealth, I am this beauty, I am this strength, I am this fame, I am all these things. Rather, they see all these things as temporary possessions in this lifetime given to them by material nature, by Krishna, to be engaged in Krishna's service. To be engaged in Krishna's service. But it is a very rare occurrence to find people like that. Very, very rare. Very rare indeed. We mustn't be naive about this. We mustn't be naive about this. Very rare indeed to find persons. That's why it is generally recommended that we aspire towards a simple lifestyle. To not have this mood of acquiring and building up and getting ahead. And yes, I've got this accolade. I need to study for this thing more. Or I've got this property. I need to develop this just to build and build and build up. Because all that energy is spent on all these material things. Acquiring this accolade, acquiring this possession, acquiring this status. Here Prabhupada is likening it all to a series of zeros and zeros and zeros. And if you add all those zeros up, Prabhupada is saying, it adds up to a great big zero. A great big zero. So as devotees who are trying to be fixed, trying to be focused on the spiritual path, we must develop an attitude of simplicity. Simplicity, sharalata. That's what we must develop. Otherwise, from where we are, we can very easily be bewildered, even by little things. Even by little things. We can be the proverbial paupers that are proud of our rands and cents. Which, if you look at our rands and cents, if you're in the UK, it doesn't mean much. Or if you're in America, it doesn't mean much. Or Australia, it doesn't mean much. But be proud of it. We aspire for a nicer room in the temple or a nicer house in the community. We aspire for a better sari or a better dhoti. We saw someone with nice borders. Hey, that looks really nice. I'd like to get something. Of course, because we're still on the material platform, these things may come up. And we should catch ourselves. Yes, okay, I'm aspiring for this. But let me pause myself. How am I going to use this? I have this tendency, I have this desire, but how am I going to use this in Krishna's service? We should always be able to be catching ourselves up. Not that we just acquire and acquire and acquire, and once in 3 years we may use that which we acquire for the service of Krishna or for the pleasure of the devotees. The mentality of just acquiring and acquiring and acquiring comes from a very deep psychological weakness for the need, of course for many reasons, but one of them that I always consider for myself is a need to feel security or protection. That I have these things, it's going to protect me. I may need it at some point in time. Let me hoard as much money as possible, build up my bank balance, because you never know when I'm going to need it. People thought about that, right? Some years ago, there was this one bank that just was used for a lot of laundering and corruption and lost all their clients' monies. I don't know if you've heard about that inside. Lost all their clients, many of them, thousands and thousands of very simple people. All their money was gone. So this attitude of hoarding and building up, material nature takes it away, just takes it away. Takes it away. So this mood of being enamored by the opulences of the material world, Janma, Aishvarya, Shruta, here it's referred to in different words, Vidya, Tapa, Vitta, Vapu. And then Vaya, youth, Kulai, heritage, Satam, piety, like that. When we are enamored by that, when we chant Hare Krishna, it is very rare, as Kunti Devi is saying, very rare to be able to chant those holy names with a feeling of dependence on Krishna. Why? Because now you are depending on these other things. You're not able to depend on Krishna. And Krishna doesn't accept that type of utterances because it doesn't have that quality of utterances that is pleasing to Krishna. Krishna is not at all pleased by our beauty. He is not impressed by it. What do we sing every day? Laksha vriteshu, Brahma Samhita. Laksha vriteshu surabhi rabipalayantam. Lakshmi sahasra. How can Krishna be attracted by our beauty when he is surrounded by Lakshmi Sahasra, thousands and thousands of goddesses of fortune? What's our beauty compared to their beauty? You can't compare it. No matter how beautiful we are, Krishna is not attracted by it. No matter how much of wealth we have, Krishna is Madhava, the possessor of all wealth, the husband of the goddess of fortune. How can he be attracted by our wealth? He is born in the greatest lineage, from Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda, or Devaki and Vasudeva, whichever way you look at it. The greatest of heritage. What is our, whatever surnames we may come from? Who cares? It doesn't make a difference. And education. Krishna, he learned all the arts that were needed to be learned in Avantipur, the school of, who was it? Sandipani Muni. In just 64 days, the whole scope of knowledge he learnt in 64 days. Of course, he always possesses them. But for the sake of pastime, he learnt it in 64 days, the 64 arts. How many years does it take us to get one simple small degree or finish school? It just goes on, and we struggle. For Krishna, it was just seamless. One day this art was learned. The other day this whole thing was learned. 64 degrees in 64 days he got. So he's not attracted by all these things that we are so enamored by. So if he's not attracted by them, how can we then hope that by the development of these qualities, we can approach Krishna? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. It actually shows madha puman, edamana madha puman. It's an intoxication. When someone's intoxicated by something, by liquor, then their behavior goes all awry, right? They don't know what they're doing. They do stupid things. They actually think, when people when shy, let's say shy men. I mean, I used to work in establishments when I was in my youth, where intoxication was all available. And I could see how these men, even shy men, very normally composed, they'll drink a lot of liquor and they'll get intoxicated, and suddenly they'll get very brave to go and pick a fight with somebody or approach a lady and try to proposition her. They get very brave by that intoxication. Only to be laughed at basically by someone who's not intoxicated. So similarly, all these things are like intoxicants. They are like intoxicants. And we become very puffed up and brave. But that doesn't work in front of Krishna. It does not work. Rather, what Krishna is attracted by is that feeling of humility, that feeling of dependence, that feeling of affection for Him, that is not born by having these things. It's born by not having these things or by not being attached to these things. At the same time, we should be mindful, devotees, that by not having these things, we must also not develop a pride of, I am so austere, I am so simple. Because that's another very interesting danger. Just look at those people, those devotees. Oh, show bottle devotees. They are so attached. They buy their nice cars. Just look at me. I don't have anything. I am so simple. Just one dhoti and kurta. Well, that will worry me if you only have one dhoti and kurta. That means it's dirty. That's really dirty. But that can also be a sense of a very subtle type of pride that can actually be even more damaging in many ways. Even more damaging by having nothing. We think we are so much more advanced. So even simplicity, externally, when it's not applied for the service of Krishna, it can become a great detriment to our spiritual progress. A very, very great detriment to us. Prabhupada, in that purport to Queen Kunti's prayers, in the 8th chapter of the first canto, he speaks about these material qualifications, so-called qualifications, as being a fever. Like your temperature rises, basically it's indicative of something wrong in the body. When there's a fever, that this body is unhealthy, there's something wrong, we need to investigate. So devotees, when we find, we shouldn't worry about, okay, maybe if you're in a position to mentoring people or overseeing the spiritual lives of people, we may have to identify these tendencies in people. But at least for us, we should be focused. When we see a tendency to want to enjoy materially or get things that are material, and it's making us feel nice and happy, we're feeling comfortable, we must understand that there's a fever developing. And that means our body, our spiritual life, that body of spiritual life, there's something unhealthy there if that tendency is coming up. And as soon as we see it, we must address it. And most of us are not doctors, so we can't. What do they say? Physician, heal thyself. For those of you who are not doctors, please don't do that if you are sick. And the worst thing you can do is go to the internet and try to ascertain according to your symptoms what your disease is. You'll probably go wrong there too. Go to someone who's qualified and show them, these are my symptoms, please help me. So when we do feel something is going wrong, at least we know, hey, I'm being attracted in this way. Oh, there's a kirtan or there's a program happening, but I'd rather read about the Ukraine-Russian war. It's so attractive to me. Or what's going on in America with Trump. Whatever. If we find more attraction for these things other than the hearing and chanting, the darshan of the deities, the accepting of prasad in the company of devotees, then something is wrong. We should be able to ascertain it. That's something. I don't know what is wrong, but let me find out. And then approach our spiritual doctors, those who are qualified, to help diagnose the situation, to help diagnose us. This is very important. So this fever. And when we do see that we are dropping in our attraction to all these material things, some people will say, oh, don't you have any ambition in life? You're such a failure. You are joining the temple just to escape the responsibilities of the world. How many of you had that statement said to you? I've had that so many times. So many times people, oh, you just don't want to take responsibility and escaping. Of course, we mustn't be escapists. That's a very good point. That's also a very good point. But when we do see our attraction for material engagement lessening, we shouldn't think, hey, something's wrong with me. When someone who's sick and the fever is coming down, what do they feel? Do they feel, oh, something's wrong? No, they feel relief. They feel like they are improving. They are improving. Prabhupada says here, the principle of life should be to decrease the degree of material intoxication, which leads one to be more and more illusioned about the aim of life. Because if we are in the mood of acquiring more and more and more, then we've lost it. We've lost the understanding of what the aim of life is. We will never be peaceful if we think we can get more and more and more and be happy and satisfied. Because more and more and more means what? More and more anxiety to protect those things you are acquiring. There was a survey done many years ago, maybe 15 or 20 years ago, I read, about lottery winners. Who doesn't want to be a lottery winner? Anybody doesn't want to be? You should all put your hands up. Because it means scratching something, which means gambling, which means you lose all your spiritual credits, basically. But who doesn't want to be a lottery winner? But they interviewed or they surveyed dozens and dozens of them. And by far the most of them admitted that they were in less anxiety before. They were happier before. Because now so many people are on them. Give me this. I want to be friends with you. Can you buy this for me? I want to hang out with you. It became so tormenting for them. So tormenting for them. So, we will lose the aim of life. And the aim of life is to be happy, to be peaceful. To be peaceful. However, if for some reason Krishna tests us by giving us some opulence, we should be very quick to realize, okay, Krishna is testing me. He's offering me this facility and he's waiting to see what I'm going to do with it. And if you don't know what to do with it, if you don't have the qualification of how to use something in Krishna's service, then give it to the spiritual master immediately to use. Safer is don't even think whether you're qualified or not. Just give it to the spiritual master to use. It's the safest thing. Some years ago, I was discussing with one senior devotee and he asked me a question. If I, meaning me, were given $2 billion, we don't talk in millions, by the way, as you can see. If you were given $2 billion, what would you do with it? And I started making all these plans, very Krishna conscious plans. I do this with the BBT, I do this with Vrindavan, I do this with the devotees in Africa, so many things. Then I realized, shoot, 2 billion. I'd get bewildered. Then I told that Maharaj, actually what I do is, I just give it all to my spiritual master. Please tell me how to use this money, because I have no idea. Initially I'm thinking, I'll do something so wonderful, so nice, very spiritual. But when I actually have it in my hand, I have no idea what will happen to me. I have no idea. So rather than trusting myself with such opulence, maybe little bits of opulence I can be trusted to do something beneficial. But when it comes to that level, pass it on to someone who really knows how to do it. So we must be very cautious, because if we keep thinking this is mine for me to use for my enjoyment, we will never be peaceful. Rather, what is the formula for peace? Krishna speaks in Bhagavad Gita, end of chapter 5. Bhoktaram Yagyatapasam. That we must understand that who is the enjoyer, who is the possessor of everything, to whom must everything be given for us to attain peace? Gyatva mam shanktim richati. For us to attain peace, we must understand that Krishna is the possessor of everything, the possessor of all beauty, all high parentage, all wealth, all strength, all learning. That whatever I've acquired by His grace, by His mercy, it's all meant for Him. Otherwise, I will never be peaceful. I will never be peaceful at all. It will never happen. So this is where peace comes. This is where peace comes. So we'll stop here. Are there any comments or questions? I'm sorry, I neglected. I didn't realize I was giving class until Justin called me. So I would have prepared a little better for this. So yeah, let's not let all our acquisitions play havoc in our life. Another reason why it will play havoc in our lives, because others will get envious of what we have and they'll start also desiring what we want. Right? That also is a problem. And it can ruin relationships. Right? It can ruin relationships. We've seen that in the material world so often. You start getting ahead and someone wants to get what you want. They want to pull you down. That also causes havoc. And Prabhupada says, they degrade the possessors of those opulences. It will degrade. All right. You had a comment. You forgot it. All right. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Gaur Premanande.